Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to a new video for Tic Tac K.O. Cute versus Evil. This is another game by Unstable Games. You get stuff like Here's Slay, Unstable Unicorns, and Casting Shadows. If this game sounds kind of familiar, it's because they had previously released Tic Tac Toe Dragons vs. Unicorns, which I also have a video for. And after, I will also be posting a comparison video between the two of them. So if you're wondering, hey, which one should I pick up, you can check out that one. But for this one, we're just going to focus on this and what this is. So basically what Tic Tac K.O, the breakdown of it is, you're playing Tic Tac Toe, which, if you're not familiar with, is where you have a grid of nine spaces and you're trying to get 3 in a row, either usually diagonal, up or down, or left to right, or some variation of that. And this lets you do that by playing cards every turn, but some of your cards will have special abilities, which you move cards around or remove your opponent's cards, so on and so forth, and you're trying to compete for points. So you're going to have this big, giant, papery grid that comes, as you can see, like coming out of the box. It kind of folds up. But we have our 9 spots. We have 1 through 9. There's also on the outside, there is A through G, which is for a little bit, if you want to play a little bit more challenging mode. Because in that way you have, an extra row, an extra column worth of spaces to go through. And then each player will get a deck of cards, which either you'll get cute or you'll get evil. Each one will have the same number of cards. They're going to be made up of basic cards, which just have cute little creatures on them. They'll have their little symbol and their color, so you can tell them apart very quickly. But they have no special abilities. They'll have special cards, which will then have some sort of ability on them. You will get instant cards, which are black, which can be used various times whenever it specifies you can use them. Usually it's whenever another player plays a card. Or you get white cards, which are magic cards, which lets you play something other than a creature. So they're one-time effect things. And then both sets have them. So these have blue cards, but then they still have the white and the black, just to tell them apart very quickly. And then the other 2 sets from the other game have the same idea. Then the other type of cards you will get are going to be the objective cards. So each player will draw one of these. It will tell you secretly what you're trying to do. Is you want to keep this hidden from your opponent. And then on the top and the bottom, it'll show, depending on what side you're on, or it's going to say what spot you need to have your cards in. So if I'm playing, it doesn't matter which side I'm playing. If I want to win this card, I have to get 3, 5, and 7. So what I want to be doing is playing a card on, and my board's, of course, going to keep folding up on me. I want to play a card on 3, a card on 5, and a card on 7. If I have a card on each one of those spots at the end of my turn, I can claim victory over that challenge. And I've won that challenge. So in the first team, to complete 3 objectives wins the game. But if your deck runs out of cards, you immediately lose the game. So you have to play somewhat strategically. Now, I keep saying teams because what you can do is you can play a 2-player game. You can play a 2-player game, 1 versus 1. You could play a 3-player game or a 4-player game. You could play up to 4 players with each person on a team of 2. And so it goes like it'd be cute player, then evil player goes. Then cute player, then evil player goes. It's actually makes some more interesting things because you'll share the same goal, but since you have different cards in your hand, it's going to make it a little bit more challenging. And then if you want to play like the harder rules, now I also have to put a spot in card C, so that just adds a little bit more challenge to the game. That's essentially how the game is played. 40 cards in each deck, 12 objective cards, and 1 grid. So at the beginning of the game, each player is going to draw 5 cards. If you are playing 2-player, you'll each draw 5 cards. Shuffle the objective deck and take it. Ooh. Sorry. each player must take an objective card in secret. You and your teammate can both look at, but you don't want to show your opponent so they don't know what you're trying to do. So if you want to play the advanced version, you must claim both the lettered and objective spaces. So you could play the advanced version. Could be another way. It could be maybe if you're playing with someone that's newer to the game or a little bit more inexperienced, you could opt to they play at the basic, which is just the white spots, and you could play at the harder spots. So it's just one way to maybe change the difficulty up. And then you just alternate turns. So what can you do on your turn? You draw a card. So draw a card from your deck to your hand. During your action phase, you play a character or a magic card from your hand. If you cannot or do not want to play a card, you may draw a second card instead. So that's basically how it's played. You draw a card, play a card. Very simple. So at the end of each turn, you may reveal an objective card if it's successfully completed your objective. Keeps it face up in front of you to keep track of it. Then remove all corresponding characters from the grid. So one thing that could very well happen is, well, I am trying to complete this, and if I have, one sec. There we go. I had to flatten my map out. So if I have, as the cute team, I have characters on 3 and 7, and the evil team has 1 and 5. I currently can't win this, so I'm going to have to play cards either on the outside to try and win. Now, if you're only playing with the basic mode, the 1 through 9, you can't place cards on the outside. So you can't use them just to get rid of. So if for some reason all the other tiles were starting to get built up, and maybe you only had one spot left to go. So if, as an example, if it is now the cute player's turn, they would have to either play a creature card there, or they have to play a magic or spell card, or skip and draw a card. Now, the only reason they could have concern whether they should play something or not is if they don't, and the evil team is trying to get that, they only have to play one card there. So there is that, because again, it's Tic Tac Toe, so you want to try and block it. Now, most of the objective cards are the typical, until you get to the outside border, the basic 1 through 9 are your standard, up and down or left and right. So it's your typical tic-tac-toe, your X versus circle dodging abilities. So you can easily figure that out, or kind of have an idea of what to try and block or what to look for. So the other couple of things that come into play is grid lock. So if there are no empty spaces on the grid at the start of your turn, and you cannot or do not want to play a card, the game is grid locked. Each player has one turn to attempt to resolve the gridlock by playing cards. If the gridlock has not been resolved, all players that have taken a turn, after all players have taken a turn, each team must sacrifice all of their special characters. So if the board ever gets completely filled up, and no one has tic-tac-toe, and nobody wants, either they can't or don't want to play a card or use an ability or something to get rid or open up a space, then everyone's cards might be destroyed. So that potentially could be a strategy, because if you know, like, hey, I'm so far off of getting what my stuff is, because it could very well, like, you won this grid, now you remove your 3 characters, and then the next card you get, your opponent has all their characters on that board, and you can't do anything. So you might choose to try and gridlock the board. Whether you can do it or not is a different thing. Then there's some other cards here, so we kind of looked over. There's the basic cards, which don't do anything. Used to claim spaces on the grid, but do not have any. Do not have any special effects. Special character cards are also used to claim spaces on the grid. But some have special effects that are ongoing, meaning their effects are active as long as they're on the grid. Others are used just once as soon as they enter play. And they'll tell you on there what they do. Then we have magic cards. One-time use effects can awaken, destroy, hypnotize, repel, or displace cards on the grid to give you an edge or help you complete an objective. After you play a magic card, move it to your team's discard piles, and then instant cards. Disrupt other players' actions can be played immediately when their conditions are met, even during another player's turn. Any number of instances can be played during a single turn. And then there's some special keywords in there, which we kind of mentioned. So, adjacent. So, only grid spaces are next to each other in any cardinal direction, up, down, left, right, count as adjacent. Diagonally touching spaces are not considered adjacent. So, if I had these two characters here, and I had a card that said, magic card that said, for example, I could destroy a card that is adjacent to my card. So if I'm the blue card here, I could destroy this card. I could not destroy him if he was here because he's not orthogonally adjacent to me. Draw, makes sense. Draw a card from the top of your deck. Discard, move a card from your hand to the discard pile. And then we have some other ones that are a little bit different. You have destroy. Move a card on the grid that belongs to the opposing team to that team's discard pile. And then I'm going to skip down here. We have sacrifice. Move one of your team's cards from the grid to the discard pile. So destroying, get rid of your opponent's cards. Sacrificing, you have to get rid of your cards. Then we have displace here. Move a card to an open space on the grid. Now again, this might say displaced to an adjacent spot, so then I would have to move this guy, one spot here. If it just said displace him to an open space, I could move him down here. So you have different options. That's one way you can free up spaces on the board, besides destroying. Then we have repel. Remove a face-up card from the grid, then choose a player on the corresponding team to add that card to their hand. So this kind of lets you, typically you're going to use that against the opponent's character, but there might be a case where you use it on something else. But repel is usually you're stopping something from playing and you're sending it back. Then there's two other keywords that work together. We have hypnotize and awaken. So hypnotize is flip a character card face down on the grid. You cannot complete objectives using hypnotized cards. Hypnotized characters have no effects, but they can still be destroyed, sacrificed, swapped, displaced, or repelled. And then we have awaken. Flip a hypnotized character on the grid face up. Once per turn at the start of your turn, you may discard a card to awaken a hypnotized character. The character states when this card enters the grid, its effect. It cannot use that card's effect when you awaken them. So you might have a card that says, hypnotize. If you flip this guy face down, now he exists in the fact that there's something taking up a space on the board, so you can still move him or get rid of him, but he will not complete his objective. So if in our base example, the evil character had this, they would not be able to win. But now they could choose on their turn to discard a card to flip this back over, which would allow them to complete their goal or their objective. Now, if they had a different objective that didn't involve that space, such as this one, which is 1, 2, 3, it's probably not beneficial for them to flip that back over just for the sake of that, especially because this particular card's a basic card that doesn't have any abilities. If it was a special character that had an ongoing ability that would really help them, it might be worth it. But as a remember, you don't want to run out of cards. So you don't want to spend too many turns destroying extra cards, trying to flip over cards you don't really have to flip over. And the same fact is if you want to keep drawing cards because you don't want to play something, you draw too many cards. Doesn't make sense to have 10 cards in your hand if you're not playing them. There are some other special rules in here. So 2-player rules, if you're playing 2 players, each player starts by taking their team deck, draw 6 cards instead of 5, and during your action phase you may play 1 character and or up to 2 magic cards instead. And if you're doing a 3-player rule, one team will have 2 players while the other has 1. A solo player will take their turn in between each other solo players. At the beginning of the game, the solo player should draw 7 cards instead of 5. So just some other quick ones. One other little thing to mention in here is this does mention swapped. So hypnotized characters can't be swapped. So swapped is another keyword that is in the other game, the Dragons versus Unicorns, which lets you switch 2 card space. So swapped would let you basically swap these 2 guys around. But it does not appear in this set. Much in the same way, Hypnotize, Awaken, and Repel are only in this set. When I do the comparison video, we'll go over that a little bit more. But just, yeah, in case you're thinking, oh, I don't remember those keywords from the other set, that's why. These are brand new keywords, and swapped is not in this deck. So it's kind of a neat idea. That's the basis of the game. Alright, so I'm going to hop in now and show you what all the cards are. Alright, so we're going to look at the 2 decks. I'm going to do both of them kind of at the same time because there's a lot of similarities between the 2 of them, and then we can kind of do a little bit of comparison on the differences. So we're going to go through the basic cards first. So there are 2 of each of the basic cards. So we have Cheeks and Peekaboo. We have Pangaboo, and we have a Peekaboo. So a little Panda Bear, a little spider. We have Twig and Froth. So a little bird and a little, I don't know, maybe like a termite, possibly. And our last 2 basics are Little Red and Mumbles. So we have a mummy ghost and a little fox. And those are the quick basic ones, so you're going to get 8 of those total. But yeah, they don't do anything special, they're just there to help you out. Alright, then we're going to look at these. So, some of these guys we have 1 copy of, some we have 2. So we have, on the left, we have the Forka Turtle. So this card cannot be destroyed. And then the evil side, we have Mesmerize, which says this card cannot be displaced. So it's kind of an interesting contrast between the 2 different decks. So they have very similar abilities, but one is it just can't be moved, and the other one can't be actually destroyed. So the turtle can't be removed from the board, or the eyes can't be moved around. And yeah, so a little bit different there. So we have 2 copies of each of these. We have Go Eyes and Hangry Jack. And I mean, these aren't going to necessarily be back and forth the exact same type of abilities. Go Eyes has, each time a card is repelled, you may draw a card. And then Hangry Jack says, players on the opponent team must discard an additional card to awaken a hypnotized character adjacent to this card. So it's really, so you kind of see again the differences you're going to get in the decks. It looks like the evil side is going to play more at the awaken hypnotized stuff, and the cute side will play more at the repelling. Alright, then we have 1 copy of each of these. So Bashful says each time a card would be repelled, you may destroy that card instead. And the Shaman Summoner says when this card enters a grid, you may play a basic evil card from your hand. Yeah, so having to repel stuff is very nice, but again, with that type of ability, it's going to require something else. And then the Shaman Summoner, there's this kind of nice. Hey, when he enters, you get to play a free basic. So this is a guy you might hang on to your hand until there's an open space on the board, or it might be or you have a basic card in your hand. If you don't have one, you might hold on to them as long as possible for hopes you get that bonus. But sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes it's just, hey, if I don't play this, I don't get to play a card this turn. We have 1 copy of each of these. We have the Furry. It says, when this card enters a grid, you may destroy any character on the grid. And then we have King Creepy. When this card enters a grid, you may destroy any character on the grid. So these both have the same effect. Now, it is very good to understand it says any character. So you can also destroy your own. Why would you ever want to destroy your own? Maybe it's a sweep. Maybe it's in the way of something else you want to play. Maybe you want to play a better creature there. You have a basic creature on the table, and you'd rather play you have something that works better for like adjacency. You have something that says, hey, if I play this here, cards around it can't be destroyed, or it destroys a card adjacent to it. It might make more sense to play that in place of one of your other cards. So there are reasons to potentially destroy your own cards. We have 2 copies of each of these. We have the Spellhound. When this card enters the grid, you may play a magic card from your hand. And Conjuring Crawler says when this card enters the grid, you may play a magic card from your hand. So you're going to see a lot of similarities back and forth. And this is mostly to keep everything somewhat even. They want to, if you've ever played regular Tic Tac Toe, nobody generally has an advantage over each other. So although you're going to have a couple of different effects or a couple of different things, they didn't want to make like one deck play super different than the other. Alright, 2 copies of these guys. We have FX100. Each time a player on an opposing team would play a magic card, they must first discard a card. And Spectra says, when this card enters the grid, you may hypnotize any character card on the grid. Again, you could hypnotize any character card. I don't know why, though, you would ever want to typically hypnotize your own card. Because it can still be destroyed now that you're just shutting off its ability. But that might be an instance where it might not make any sense. We have 1 copy of each of these. We have the Bombird. When this card enters the grid, you may sacrifice it. Then destroy up to 2 character cards on the grid. So that's kind of cool. You can drop them down, and then you can destroy up to 2. Now, that can be 0, 1, or 2, depending on what you need to do. And then we have Hugsies, who's a cactus. When this card enters the grid, you may hypnotize any adjacent character and then draw a card. So again, this might have been a good reason to destroy one of your own characters if it makes sense on the next turn to potentially play this guy in that spot. Because then you could be like, now I can hypnotize one of my opponent's characters instead of having a base character on the table. The only problem you have to remember is that, is that space still going to be open the next time you come around? So we have 2 copies of these. We have Hair Razor. When this card enters a grid, you may displace an adjacent character. So same thing there. And Umbra, enters a grid, you may displace any adjacent character. So it's like a lot of the ones where there are 2 copies of each, it's lots of the same stuff. It's the single copies that tend to have different abilities. But not all the time. As this is an example of 2 copies of these, we have Hot Shot. When this card enters a grid, you may discard a card, then repel any character on the grid. And then Grim Keeper says, when this card enters a grid, choose a card from your discard pile and move it to the top of your team deck face down. So that's actually very interesting, because that'll let you actually recycle cards from your discard pile to help keep you from running out of stuff. And so far, we haven't had a lot of stuff with Repel, but it says remove a face-up card from the grid, then choose a player, and they add that card to their hand. So there could be times you might want to repel your own cards, because then you can get it back to your hand and replay it for its effect, or you can bounce your opponent's card back to their hand to get it off the table. So then we have our last 2 characters, is we have Pearl Maniac. When this card enters a grid, you may repel any adjacent character. And Stickler, when this card enters the grid, you may sacrifice it and hypnotize any 2 character cards on the grid. Alright, so that's definitely cool. So the blue cards play a lot with the repel mechanic, either getting a repel or bonuses from that. And the evil team has a little bit of hypnotize, has a little bit of trickery type of stuff, but what do you expect from evil? Alright, then let's look at our magic cards. So we're going to have 1 copy of each of these. We have Stamper Away, repel any character card on the grid, then search your discard pile for a basic cue card and add it to your hand. So that's definitely helpful. And Splitting Image says hypnotize any character card on the grid, then search your discard pile for a basic evil and add it to your hand. So the same second hand effect, just one does a hypnotize and one does the repel. We have one copy of each of these. We have free hugs, repel any character card on the grid, then play a basic Q character, and Evil Spawn has to draw 3 cards and discard a card. Yeah, so it's interesting. Lets you get to play a card for free. Or you get to and then repel a character and then place a card. Again, you can always repel one of your own and place yours, or do it for your opponents. But Evil Spawn lets you get your drawing cards and discarding, so it lets you get some better advantage. So it's kind of like a one-time versus maybe a multi-turn advantage. Alright, our next set, we have 3 copies of each of these. We have Stink Bomb. Repel or awaken any character card on the grid. And Hypnotic Doom is hypnotize any character on the grid. So it gives you a little bit of different options. We have 2 copies of each of these. We have Burbnado. Displace any character on the grid. And Scattering Storm, which also displace any character on the grid. So these two are kind of they're exactly the same. And then 2 copies of Bun Bun Blast and Midnight Snack. Destroy any character on the grid, so they do the same thing. Again, you want to have a little bit of differences. They have a couple different cards, but then a bunch of them do the exact same stuff. And that's just, because it makes them, very even. Alright, then our final set of cards are instant cards. So we have 2 copies of each of these. We have Safety Shell. Play this card when a player on the opposing team tries to destroy or displace any character card. Repel the character card on the grid instead. Yes, that's very helpful. They try and move your card or destroy it. You can go ahead and return it to your hand. Very interesting. And then Cave of Nightmares. Play this card when a player hypnotizes a card. Destroy that card. You may play a basic evil card from your hand. So now again, what's very interesting about the 2 different ones here, Safety Shell has to say a player on the opposing team tries to do it, you repel it, where Cave of Nightmares says when a player. So you could potentially try and hypnotize your own card to destroy it, which is a very evil thing to do, destroying your own cards, but it lets you play a basic evil card. I don't know why you would want to destroy one of your own cards to play a basic card. If it was any character card, it would make more sense. But it is always, again, one of the things that is an option. Then we have 4 copies of these cards. These are the bulk of our instances. Friendship Circle and Dark Terror says, play this card when any other player tries to play a card. Stop that player's card from being played and send it to their discard pile. So they both do the same thing. So this stops any player from playing a card. So this will help you, like, hey, they're trying to destroy a card, play their final card. But it has to be while they're playing it. You could potentially see what the card is. Like, so, a good example would be like, I could be like, I'm playing Permaniac on, grid spot number 3. And then your opponent could be like, no, I'm, Dark Terroring that and getting rid of that. They get to see what it is, they can know where it's going, but they can't wait until after you place it on the board, and then they can't be like, sit there, you know what, I guess I will, like, they can't wait until you're like, hey, end of my turn, I'm gonna win. They're like, no, I'm gonna play this card to win. Like, you have to decide to do it pretty much before they've actually physically put it on the table. Alright, then the final card and the final instant is Cuteness Overlord and Creeping Doom, which is the same as the other one, it's just better. Said, play this card when another player tries to play a card, stop that card from being played and send it to their discard pile. This card cannot be stopped. So, this is the same as the other one, except it has the additional effect of it can't be stopped. So basically what that means, and it's directly implying, is that I could go through to play Hot Shot here, and the evil player could play Dark Terror to stop me from playing him. And then I could turn around and play Friendship Circle to stop his Dark Terror. And then he could be a jerk and play another Dark Terror to stop my Friendship Circle. And you could keep stopping these until someone either runs out of cards, stops playing, or if they play one of these, which can't be stopped. So it's always something to keep in mind. You can always basically negate someone else's canceling effect. I do like the fact, though, that with this set, even when you have cards that do the exact same thing, even like Instances of Magic, they gave them different names. And just to point that out, because it's different than like Unstable Unicorn, where everyone shares a deck, that like all the cards that do the same thing have the same thing. So like they have the stop cards, they're called nay cards, they're all the same. But it makes sense because you're a shared deck and these are all separate. Alright, so then the last set of cards we want to look at quick are our objective cards. And they're very straightforward. So we have 1, 2, 3, and then like 1 with A. We have 4, 5, 6 with B. 7, 8, 9 with C. So your rows left to right. You have your columns 1, 4, 7 with an E. 2, 5, 8 with an F. And 3, 5, 9 with a G. Then you have kind of your angles. Because you have, if you're just playing the regular 9 spot, they have 3, 5, and 7, which are your regular angles. But instead of going to D and making it a 4 in a row, they have it off to the side with C. I'm not really entirely sure why they did it that way, but that's what they did. Instead of 1, 5, and 9, so you keep your regular diagonal thing, but then they added A. And this might be why. It's because they didn't want to do 4 this way and then not be able to do 4 one of the other directions. So they just tried to match it so it goes off to the side and then the other one goes to the other side. They have a similar thing here. We have alternates. We have so this is not one way you typically ever win Tic Tac Toe, which is what makes the game a little bit more interesting. There's a couple more options versus just those original 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's actually one more options here. We have 12. We have 2, 6, and 8 with a option for G down here. We have 2, 4, and 8 with an option of D. And then we kind of have like a corners version. We have 1, 3, 9, and D. And then we have 4, 6, 7, and E. So it gives you a bunch of different options, but it's kind of an interesting thing to note. So like, if I am currently playing my cards down and just using the regular main grid, if I have a card on 1 and 3, you have to worry, do I need to get a spot in 2? Or do I need to put a spot in 9? Or am I just messing with you by having one spot in 3, 1 and 9, and instead of just needing to play either a card in 2 or 9 to win, I could be trying to go for this one, or this one, or this one, or this one, because I could have just 1 in that spot, or just 3 in that spot, and you might not know if I'm trying to go for that to complete it, or if I'm trying to set you off. And even there in the same thing is I could have a 1 and 3, and then I could play a card down here in 9, and then you're immediately going to be like, oh, is he trying to complete... He didn't complete that one. So you could maybe, if you know that you memorize this enough, you could stop that. But now you might be worried I'm going to play a 5 here. But I could just be putting that 9 down there to throw you off and be trying to put the 2 there. So there's some definite different options to do there. I think what we got, an A, 2 A's. I think on the outside, though, nothing really duplicates. We got 1 B. We got 2 C's. So 2 A's, 2 C's. We got 1 B. We got 2 E's. 2 D's. Yeah, so we have some definitely duplicates on the outside and 2 G's. So E and F are the only ones that only have 1 card each. So that might have been a little bit interesting if they would have added 14 cards and had one that was like, because you had the 1, 3, and 9, they could have done like a different order with E and F one more time each or something like that. Maybe like 4, 6, and 2, and then like F, like make a diamond, and then maybe almost, there could have been options. But that's what we have for this game. So the last thing I do want to show off before I quit the video is we have sleeves. So if you are interested in sleeves, they did make special sleeves specifically for this game. They do not come in the box, but you can order them through the Unstable Unicorns website. There are 50 sleeves for each color. So you won't have sleeves for your objective cards. You'll have to buy those separate. But each deck has 40 cards. You'll have 10 sleeves left over. And so far they haven't made any expansions for these. Like the other game, the Guiding Hero had 1 promo card, so like 1 extra. But this gives an extra, basically 10 sleeves in case something would happen to them. But they're kind of nice if you want some clear sleeves on the back with your colors. Plus, I think they look a little bit cooler than just that. A little bit nicer, a little bit standout. So definitely check it out. Alright, so hope you guys enjoyed the video. Move my camera back up. For Tic Tac Toe, Cute vs. Evil. Check out the original Dragons vs. Unicorns if you want to see what's in that box, or look forward to the video where I compare them. You can see kind of what some of the differences are of all of them. See you guys later. Bye.